Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you are having a great time in this sales conference. I'm so proud that finally SAIL has their own conference. And this time I'll be presenting an RBAC2 approach with sales. This is something that we're using in our company for managing all the different role-based access controls. And without further ado, let's just start checking some of the concepts here. So first of all, let's introduce us to what RBAC means, right? RBAC is role-based access control. In a role-based access control system, what you normally have is a set of roles that are normally assigned to users. Now, each role can have different permissions associated to them, and each permission normally maps to a certain action in your application. In the implementation that we will see, the particular permissions are associated to the routes. So we found that normally on our use case, our API has different routes that have different roles associated to them. For example, if you want to do some normal user dashboard display, or want to pull a dashboard from our API, the role is just a normal user. Whereas if you want to edit the dashboard or delete the dashboard, do something more advanced on different objects in our platform, the role is going to be an admin. In this particular implementation, a user can have only one role, though this could be extended so that a user can have more than just one role. All right. Now, a role can be associated to different roles, and we'll see that in the following screen. For example, whenever you have an anonymous role, an anonymous user can only do things like sign up, login, forgot password, homepage, and can view posts. In this case, we'll see an example of a simple, very simple blog post application that is just built for this use case. Then we have a normal role. The normal role can have different other actions besides the anonymous action. So it's an inheritance that is happening here. A normal can do the same things that an anonymous user can do, but also they can create posts, they can update posts, and they can delete their own posts. And finally, an admin can just do everything that a normal user can do, as well as updating all posts and deleting all posts. This is just an example. In the particular implementation, there are slight changes for the sake of making it shorter. So what I have implemented in this case, along with some of our team, member of our team in our company, we have developed a hook, right? A hook is a way of extending sales. You can probably find more information in the sales documentation about how to implement it and what's the specification on how to build a hook. Nonetheless, it just works as just like any other hook. You just install it, and for the configuration, the very first thing you have to do is set up the configuration that we see on screen. Whenever we move later on into the resources, you'll find all the links to the different repositories and different elements. So in our case, we're going to be configuring the roles. In this case, we have anonymous, normal. A normal can do anonymous, and an admin can be a normal. Also, we're going to be configuring what is the variable that is going to be the session object. This will be basically what you normally have as your request.user or request.me, whatever you have in your application. As well, you have a path to the particular attribute in that user object. That attribute is going to be the one that is going to be determining the role of your user within your application. And finally, we have what is called a helper path that we'll see later on a little bit how it works. And then after you create the RBAC file with the configuration for your hook, the next thing that you have to configure is basically each of the routes. And the easiest way that we found so far, and to continue with the convention over configuration kind of strategy, we extended the route's configuration to have an RBAC attribute. The RBAC attribute will have a set of keys, and each key will be associated to a role. Now, as you can see here, for view pages, or for viewing logins, or for posting that login username and password to our application for signing in, those are all anonymous routes. As you can see, there are different anonymous routes that we have defined in this example application. Now, for the case of the normal and admin roles, these are some of the examples here. You can notice that now the RBAC role for posting, for creating a post, is normal, right? So it requires the user to be of the normal role for you to be able to actually have a ability to execute that action. So all of this happens in the background within the hook, and is automatically managed for you. Now, if you want to update a post, you can actually have a normal when. That means both roles, the normal and the admin, can update a post, but a normal user will only be able to update it whenever he is the author of it. And finally, on the delete post, you will see that there's the same use case, but in this case the when is not just a string, but it's actually a function. And that's where the previous configuration that I mentioned earlier comes into place. Let me go back a little bit. So here's where you define the path and services RBAC helpers, or it could be helpers and some other container or object that has all the functions that you want to use. So to simplify your when configurations, you can just have strings that will be the names of the functions within that specified helper path. You can also specify a whole function if you need to, and you can just code your helper function here. Every when function has to finally return into the next a Boolean value. That way, it means that you can continue. So it's not just that you're a normal user, but you can actually do dynamic checks on the particular route. For example, if you have permissions to see a particular object, or if you're the author in this case. And finally, deleting, we are just in this case, in this configuration example, we're just letting admin users to basically do deletions on these posts. Actually, sorry, on the user. So it's about time to do some demo. We'll be doing some configuration and some a little bit of coding, and I'll be describing a little bit how this application is being built. So let me go back to this screen over here. So we have my terminal here. We have our example. We also have the code for the RBAC example. This is just the sales application that we have. We also have the RBAC hook that will probably go and make some quick review of how it's being built, and let's get after it. So the very first thing that you will notice is that there's a sales hook RBAC here. Right now it's version 0.0.1, mainly because on our use case we have been using it internally for years now, but this is the first time I actually published this RBAC as to the public. So I welcome everyone to actually review it and make any changes if you see fit. The particular RBAC hook makes use of another NPM module called RBAC2. I'll get into more details later. So what we have here then is just a regular sales API sales application where we have some controllers, we have some a custom hook to handle the sessions, we have a couple of models, user and posts. We have a policy here just for demonstrating some cases that I want to show you. A particular response, nothing too special here. Some pages, some views for this application, right? So let's just get started. Let's just start our application here. It will start the normal application. Let's go back to our browser. So what we have here is just a regular blog view of our application. The very first thing that we will do is just go through a quick overview of how it works. We'll just sign up with the user. I'm going to create a normal user. I will name it normal user, and the password is going to be just the same email to make things easier. So we have now our normal user that this user can now create a post. I will just create this is my very first post. What a successful idea. And here's our very first post, right? It's just the title, the user, and the content. Now we can see here that this is a normal user, it's in session. I can log out, I can log back in. Now the create is out of the picture. I can log in back again with normal user, and now we have a create button here back again, right? Very simple. Now let's create an admin user. For doing so, I do have already a helper post here. So I will create the admin user right from my environment. And if I see here, it's a 200. It was created. The role here, it's going to be an admin. The email is going to be admin.example.com, and password. Of course, I'm not encrypting password. This is just a demo app for us to review. So if I try to log in now, I go with an admin. What we'll see now is that the user is an admin user. He has the ability to manage the posts, and he has the ability to delete the posts. All right. So far, this is our example application. Let's log out of it and let's review a little bit how it's being structured inside. So let's go first to the config. The config file has, as I said, an RBAC configuration here that has the roles that we defined, and an anonymous, and then a normal that can do anonymous, and an admin that can do normal. And I will have services and RBAC helpers in the services. Now I haven't implemented this section yet because I want to show you how you create those helper functions as part of the demo. So next, let's go to the routes. This is the routes file here, and what we have is just a regular routes file with the exception of having these RBAC attributes added to this particular application, right? We will see that there are some when functions that are here going to be called. Those are not yet implemented, so we will have to do them in this demo. But nonetheless, let me just show you what happens if I'm logged in as a user, as a normal user. Example.com, and if I want to, let's say, go directly to the post admin section, it's forbidden. I cannot have access to that section there. Now let's do something here. Let's just comment this out and just make it, this is not defined, right? Our sales application should have had restarted. Okay, it doesn't seems like I have to make some changes there for this to work. Let's just do it differently. Let's just make sure that the post admin route is actually accessible by the normal user. So let's go down here. Let's search for post admin and change this from admin to normal. The application should restart. And if I refresh here, now I'm an admin, although I'm a normal user. All right. So this is very simple. I'm just going to put it back to admin, and you will see that now it's back to forbidden. So very simple. It has its benefits and its drawbacks, right? So the way we implement it here, you have to actually assign a particular role to posts. We have some ideas about doing this more dynamically by moving the roles and everything into the database, and that's probably going to be a next iteration of our hook. But for now, this has been working for us very well for the last 7 years in our company, and it's pretty good. So let's test out the part where we try to delete a post as an admin. As an admin, it's going to be very simple because now let me just log in back as a as an admin here, admin@example.com, and I'm an admin. I can manage the posts, and I can delete the normal user post because I'm an admin, right? So I can create another post. Let's say this is an admin post, so no one should be able to delete it. So let's say no normal user should be able to delete it. All right, this is an admin post. I'll log out. It's still public because I'm showing every post for everyone. And if I go to the normal user, normal, I see that, and it's being created by an admin. Now, I didn't implement the delete section just to show you everything over here. So let's go ahead and just create, let's add a delete button over there. We'll go to the view, pages, posts, wall, right? We'll create a delete link over here. So we have a partial for the post. We'll go to the particular partial here. I will add a button by the title that is going to be a delete. So this is going to be class. I'm very bad at CSS, so forgive me. My strong part is mostly APIs. So bear with me. I know this has to be button warning, I guess. href is gonna be slash post slash delete, and the ID here needs to be the post.id. And if everything is kind of okay, we should have a delete, right? It's a warning. I think it's maybe danger. Yeah, that's better, right? So I can try to delete it. I'm a normal user. I will try to delete it here. So the very first thing that we'll go and check is that the get post delete, it's only for admin. And you know, to make my life easier for this demo, normally you should do a delete verb, right? With a post delete, right? And everything for like doing it the right way. But I didn't want to mess up with a lot of JavaScript in the front end, so I just made it a get post delete, and that's what it's actually deleting. And the only roles that are available for this is just the admin. So let's just copy the normal from this delete post and put it into the get post delete section. Now from here, if I just leave it like that, it will error because I don't have that service defined. So I will just try it again, refresh, and it says cannot read property is author of undefined, and that makes sense. So let's see how we can fix it, right? So first of all, this service doesn't exist. So let's just create the service. Seems like in my view I don't have the new over here, so I'm gonna do it from here. New directory. Let's do it from the terminal. It's gonna be easier. cd API mkdir services. Right, now we have our services folder. I will create the new file here. File new JavaScript file, and that will be for some reason I'm having some UI menu issues. Let me just create them from here. Attach. The file was named let's go back here, RBAC helpers .js. Let's just call it services. I prefer it to be RBAC helpers service. We'll have the file over here. Let's just move it over this to the services folder, and we have our service here. So this is just a very simple file that should have a module exports. with a function called isAuthor, and the signature needs to be a params and next. Now let me explain this a little bit. Function params next. So this is the signature of the function. Params are going to be, let me go back now to the RBAC hook definition. Params are going to be different elements that come from the request object. As a helper, let me just find here when function. Params are going to be let me just search for request.user, request.body, actually, within this project. Here we are. So params is initialized with all params. It's also initialized with the session object, the body, and the request. So these are the functions that you will have available, the variables that you have available within the params. So we can say for this particular one, the service will be called with to see if the user is an author. So I will just change this to make sure that the user receives all the pieces that it needs. So on the delete, it's going to be receiving a post ID. So since we're doing an all params, the params will have an ID. I will go and say const post ID equals params dot post ID, and then I will do const post equals await. Let's do this async. Await use post find one, the post ID, and then let's check. Let's get the user, right? So we have the user ID, session user ID, and they will get the particular params.me.id. And from here, let's just get the user in session, and let's compare. If post author equals the session user ID, then next null true. Return. Either case, let's just return it with false. So this should be sufficient. Of course, there might be some issues we'll have to double check, but in this case we have, let's just review it. We have a service, RBAC helper service. Let's just change that name in the RBAC helpers service, and then the function will be defined in the routes. Services helper service is author. All right, so this should be it. Let's go and try it out. Seems like we still have an undefined here, probably because of the path that I just defined in the here. Let me just do a console log services and object keys. Let's go back to our console, restart application, refresh our okay, so it's RBAC helper service in lowercase. Let's just put it that way, and we should be golden. So basically we got a forbidden, and that's right. We are a normal user and we should not be able to delete an admin post. So let's go back ahead here and just create a post for the user. this is a post from a normal user. My content goes here. And if I try to go ahead and delete the admin, again, I have it forbidden, but now if I try to delete a normal user, it just works. And that's mainly because we're doing that validation in our RBAC hook on the helper function. It goes through, it validates the user, it checks with the session user, and it returns false or true according to the author of the post. So let me just now go and give you a much better idea of how the hook works internally. I would really like to give you this so that anyone else that can help us out into improving this. There are many future changes I would like to do. One is the ability to support multiple roles and also the ability to configure roles from a database. But that's for future pull requests or are more than welcome. So initially what we do here is as a hook, you normally have a default section that is going to be where you load all your hook defaults. Particularly, it's going to be this file. The defaults are going to be anonymous, normal, admin, and super admin, right? This is the default that we load from any hook. It will always, this requires you to have a session and ORM. Actually, I just noticed that I have leftover custom. I will remove it because this should not require custom to be your default. Nonetheless, normally on Sales 1.0 1.x applications, you normally have on the examples that Sales generates, it creates a hook called custom for handling all of the sessions for you. In our case, in our company, we have a hook that is called passport that handles all our logins and sessions in our particular case. That can be configured in your actual application. In this case, I haven't set any wait for hooks, and the idea here is that if you want to have a hook to be loaded first, you just set here wait for hooks passport. This makes sure that whenever you are going to be validating your routes, the ORM is started up already, the sessions are already started up, and the passport, and you have the corresponding things in your passport. So the other section, the other pieces that you have in a normal hook are configuration, initialization, and finally the routes. The configuration part is just a very simple thing that what it does, it takes the RBAC rules that you have on your defaults and it joins them to the rules that are defined in the routes. We have a helper function that does that for us, and that helper function basically goes and iterates every route, and it infers some of the information here and set up the calls to the RBAC check on every route. It's really not that complicated. It has a little bit of a complication whether you have the correct variables available on the different phases of the hook, but really the code is not that complex, and I'm very welcome again to whether work with you and help you out if you need to make any modifications to it. On the initialization, we just create a new RBAC object, and for you to see the RBAC project npm.js package RBAC2, you will notice that this particular one was published last time was 4 years ago, and I've checked, and this user is no longer even a GitHub user. So I created my own version of it. So I will be maintaining this package as needed. So I created Luis Lobo RBAC. Luis Lobo RBAC2. I recommend you to fork this one if you need to. I'll be maintaining and making changes on this one in the future. So this project actually depends of the fork that I made out of it, and I will be helping you out if you need to make any change over there. Going back to the hook, mainly the one of the most important parts at the end is exposing the RBAC check function. So you actually can use a you can call this function directly from your application anywhere and not necessarily associated to routes. So you could actually go ahead and say, okay, I want to do a particular check on a service or on a controller. Let's just say that I want to do something special, some other check in between that is not associated directly to a route, but I could do sales hooks RBAC check, and if we see the signature for RBAC check, it does require this the normal request response next. But it also, you can see if you can do something. I can say can get other users permissions, if I were to do something like that, and I just pass in request response and next. So it's basically a matter of being creative about how you want to do this. And one thing that I didn't mention is that the hook itself can also define in the routes the can verbs if you need to. Sorry, in the routes. That will let you basically say a particular specific name that you want to use here and just call it by name. The hook automatically creates that can for you, so you don't have to define it, but you could be able to define that can verb here, and just it will work. I would like you also to go and check a little bit more about how the RBAC2 module works. Its documentation is very simple. It talks about how this works, and how we implement it is basically what I'm trying to help you out here. So I think this is all about it. I would really like to hear your comments, and yeah, I'm really happy that you have been with me. I have some resources for you. So the first one is a link to a PDF that talks a lot more in theory about what RBAC means and how all the different levels are have been defined in the past by smarter people than me. A link to the RBAC hook in npm, and a link to RBAC GitHub, a link to RBAC module, a link to the slides, and finally you can find me here on most social networks and GitHub as Luis Lobo. Well, thank you very much, and I'm here for any questions that you might have. Bye-bye.